Good evening, everyone. You're welcome to the 6 p.m. newscast on Equinoxe television. In our top stories, the close to 5 years old armed conflicts in Anglophone Cameroon continues to record series of atrocities and abusive, above all, killings in the two English-speaking regions. The recent case is the killing of a civilian, Dubila Jibril Ngoran, at the below Foncha neighborhood in the Bamenda 3 subdivision of the restive northwest region by one of the warring parties. Locals took to the streets denouncing continuous killing, abuses and atrocities committed on citizens by the warring parties. They as well paraded various quarters with the body of the killed Jibril, saying enough is enough. You will hear more in this newscast. Plus, Doctors Without Borders have refuted allegations made by the government of Cameroon that they are providing ammunition to separatist fighters to destabilize the state and cause a separation. They say they operate respecting their engagement, that is provision of basic humanitarian assistance to the affected populations of the northwest and southwest regions. Those are our top stories. Good evening once again. You're welcome to the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe television, where we are broadcasting live in Douala, the nation's economic capital. We begin with this story in the restive northwest region of the country, where the close to the 5 years old armed conflict rocking that part of the region continues to record atrocities as well as abusive, above all, killing. The latest killing is that of Dubila Jibril Ngoran at the below Foncha neighborhood in Bamenda 3 subdivision of the northwest region. He was killed by one of the warring parties. Locals took to the streets denouncing what they term a continuous abuse of rights of innocent civilians by the warring parties. They say enough is enough. They as well caused a lot of destruction. The incidents occurred Sunday, July 4, 2021. Details in the follow report. Angry residents of the below Foncha neighborhoods in Queen Bamenda 3 subdivision marching through various streets on Sunday, July 4, 2021 with peace plans, protesting against the killing of a man called Jibril Dubila Ngoran, allegedly by some uniformed men manning a checkpoint.
This some man when a quarter man for below Foncha here. We don't come out the camp for inside moto. Shoot them, we no get no motive.
The population also paraded various quarters with his corpse, telling the warring parties enough is enough. Accompanying them were bike riders who also were eager to know the exact reason why Jibril Dubila Ngoran was shot dead.
You can't talk away with the key.
These angered citizens also went destructive. An official statement on circumstances surrounding his killing is still awaited. Meantime, locals say this recent execution is coming to add to several abuses and violence committed by warring parties on innocent civilians. The killing of Ngoran has been condemned by the civil society group Women for Permanent Peace and Justice, who say time to intervene in the continuous slaughter of civilians and the militarization of civilian localities is now.
Man, where they see every day, you know.
And in the second part of this newscast, we'll be having as guest Dr. Emma M. Mosong, who is founder of the Women for Permanent Peace and Justice in Anglophone Cameroon. She will be punctuating on the recent atrocities, abuses, and killings being committed or on the rise in the two English-speaking regions and others. We'll as well talk about the Doctors Without Borders, who have categorically rejected allegations made by the government of Cameroon that they are providing arms to separatist fighters in order to destabilize the country and cause its separation. They note in a two-page document that reads, "We affirm as an absolute that we have never facilitated the transport of arms, ammunition, or armed combatants, and have never provided logistical or financial support to any of the parties to the ongoing crisis. In Cameroon, as everywhere else in the world, we operate in the strictest respect of our charter, which requires us to act in a framework of total independence, neutrality, and impartiality, and to apply a policy of zero tolerance for the presence of weapons in the structures and vehicles we support and maintain." That is just a summary of what Doctors Without Borders notes in their two-page documents published today. And should we recall that the government of Cameroon suspended Doctors Without Borders from carrying out humanitarian assistance in the two English-speaking regions of the country over claims they support separatist fighters with arms. Now we talk about insecurity that is on the rise in a locality called Zamboui. That's a village in the east region of Cameroon. This insecurity is masterminded by rebels from the Central African Republic. They have caused the locality to be ungovernable as well as uninhabitable. Details with Formi Armstrong Sander.
Inhabitants of Zamboui, a village on the border between Cameroon and the Central African Republic, have for many years been victims of cross-border insecurity. The locality and inhabitants have been subject to kidnappings, cattle theft, and violent activities by rebels from the Central African Republic. A precarious security situation that saw the deployment of soldiers of the elite units of the Cameroonian army, the B, to secure the area. The commanders say their presence comes within an initiative taken by the head of state, President Paul Biya, 3 years ago, to create extended security units for the defense of Cameroon. Inaugurated by the divisional officer for Garwa Bulai, the extended security post comprised a dormitory of 40 beds, offices, a restaurant, and a generator for energy supply. The structure, according to the soldiers, has been constructed within the spirit of the army and the nation. They say 2 renovated and furnished classrooms have been given to the local population as part of their civil-military activities. Teachers and kids had abandoned the school because of insecurity coupled with kidnappings and vandalism. They hope to see permanent peace and security return to their area with the presence of the defense and security forces.
To Edeya in the Sanaga Maritime Division of the Littoral region to talk about an individual who has been arrested by police elements for production of fake documents, thereby juggling fabulous sums of money from Cameroonians. The man was arrested during an operation launched to track down and arrest those who are specialized in the production of fake documents. Details with Immaculate Fogwe.
29-year-old Unji Kennedy, in a dragnet of elements of the Edeya police station, the Sanaga Maritime Division, Littoral region. He is specialized in the production and falsification of documents and the forging of fiscal stamps, all types of stamps, birth certificates, identification cards, and forged breeder documents were discovered in his hideout. The perpetrator who claims to be a high school graduate who hails from the Menchum division in the Northwest region, says the activity was meant to support internally displaced persons like him who experience challenges while trying to get these documents.
And look how Anglophones are suffering to have birth certificate, how Anglophones are suffering to have ID card. And every day they arrest Anglophones here for not having ID cards. Every day some children miss their first school because they don't have birth certificate to register. There was a commission that was sent out to register those people who don't have ID cards and who don't have birth certificates. So 2 of my English-speaking girls, when then they were driven away by the Francophones, that what is happening, that people started a war in a place and we were coming here to establish ID card. The girls were crying.
Unable to get a full-time job after having graduated, he later decided to rely on this fraudulent means.
I'm a chief in Menchum Valley, and most of these things I'm doing out of frustration because I've gone to school for more than 16 years now, no concours, even just to work like a scout or a messenger, or even a ticket collector. I've not been having the opportunity. So most of all these ones I'm doing out of frustration. It's not my way, and I'm doing because of it. So when this Anglophone crisis started, I've struggled to stay in the village, but since those guys are worrying, I have to come here in the day to have some rest.
The Edea Police Commissioner Gilibit Jean Georges cautions the population to be vigilant.
D'en appeler à la vigilance des fonctionnaires.
I would like to call the attention of those working identification units. They have to be vigilant in order to avoid delivering documents to those with fake identity cards and birth certificates. I'm equally calling on the population of Edea to go to competent offices in order not to fall prey.
Par les services compétents en vue d'éviter d'être poursuivis devant les juridictions.
Commissioner Gilibit Jean Georges urges the population to denounce such people as it is the only way of ending such fraudulent activities. He equally vowed to eradicate such practices as well as other forms of crimes in Edea. The victim has been transferred to the Edea Central Prison.
On to news that has to do with nature. According to reports from certified organizations, Cameroon has lost 1 million hectares of forest land between the years 2001 and 2019. It is for this reason that Rainforest Alliance with other organizations discussed this pertinent problem in a meeting to sort out ways to curb deforestation in the country. Charles Ekome has details.
According to a report from Global Forest Watch, Cameroon has lost about 1 million hectares of forest land between 2001 and 2019. This is equivalent to about 4.2% of forest land lost since the year 2000. With the rapid growth of urbanization and agriculture affecting deforestation, there is reason to be concerned about the situation.
Bien que les espaces ouverts soient faibles de l'ordre de 1 hectare à demi hectare.
Open spaces in the forest sometimes reach 1 to 2 hectares of land, which is usually cultivated by locals. When we multiply these figures, it amounts to so much. Another problem which has led to this growing phenomenon is the change of status when it comes to forests, which were permanently classified not exploitable, but now being exploited by agro-industries. In a nutshell, with the evolution of mankind and the need for agri-products, deforestation is constantly gaining grounds.
La déforestation va continuer à croître pour des raisons agricoles.
Agriculture, being the principal cause of deforestation, requires that it should be well planified so as to avoid extensive deforestation. When we examine the entire situation, we realize that deforestation is mostly being conducted in rural areas, considering the agricultural techniques being used by locals. Agriculture in rural areas is mostly done extensively, which means some parts of the forest is being cleared and cultivation begins on the portion of land for 1 to 3 years, and afterwards locals encroach to another piece of land which is more fertile. The meeting between the actors in this domain also witnessed them discuss the geographical localization of exploited forests, highlighting the zones in risk of deforestation and the preservation of wildlife reserves.
La cartographie est importante.
Cartography is important because it's on the chart that we can localize various forests in the country, and we can also trace which of the forests has been authorized by government for exploitation or not.
Ou interdit par le plan de zonage.
Rainforest Alliance developed in 2020 a program with measures to reduce deforestation and the destruction of natural ecosystems.
And on to this advertorial before we end this first part of the newscast. The Chief Executive Officer of Bell and Community Group of Companies, Ronnie Rostran, is a young Cameroonian entrepreneur who has decided to invest in cryptocurrency. This in order to coach other youths to join the sector. He organized a workshop here in Douala, the country's economic capital, where he schools the participants on the benefits of crypto markets. Details with Mala Glory.
A young Cameroonian entrepreneur, breaking new grounds, breaking limitations, extending his limits and reaching out beyond the sky in the digital economic subsector. He is the founder of Bell Forex and CEO of Bell and Community Group of Companies, offering services online and offline. From a well-equipped office in Bonaberi, in the 4th subdivision of Cameroon's economic capital, Douala, he is constantly online searching and analyzing opportunities in the market. As a consultant, he has busy days receiving and coaching clients and other young entrepreneurs.
Involved with digital economy in a safe way, avoiding scam platforms and probably learning how to actually do it themselves, especially in the field of forex and cryptocurrency, which has actually been a field where a lot of people are using to scam others. So what we do and what we've been doing is to actually guide and coach young Cameroonians on how to trade the forex market and the crypto market effectively. As you know, the forex exchange market is the largest market in the world, with over $6.1 trillion traded on a daily basis, and coupled with the crypto market, which is about $1.8 to $2 trillion traded on a daily basis.
After several seminars in Boya, comes a workshop in the city of Douala as he busily prepares for it. He makes a grand entry as he gets into the hall to meet the participants. So passionate about digital economy, Ronnie Rostan leaves the University of Boya with a degree in biomedical science to join the crypto market and wish to share this knowledge with youths willing to be their own boss.
Data scientist professional from the Faculty of Earth Science of the University of Bamenda. Back in the University of Bamenda, I needed money to fund my education, to be able to pay my house rent. And I decided to go online after hearing the speech of the president that encourages you to get involved into digital economy. I decided to actually look for ways I can make money online to be able to support myself and my family. So I started 4 years ago, still in the university, investing, trying to study forex, crypto, and at the end of the day, before leaving the university, I've generated so much income that pushed me to focus in digital economy, and especially in the domain of forex and cryptocurrency.
Working with forex has been very beneficial to one of them, as he mentions.
Being in crypto, Bell Forex and crypto community, what I've been able to benefit a lifetime coaching in the fact that I stay profitable in my trading career, because so many people get into the trading and they want fast money, but at Bell Forex and crypto community, we are given the skills to stay profitable all through the training.
Not only for the youth, but for any age group, as long as there is a will and a desire for financial independence.
We're giving money to them to go and trade, and I lost a lot of money. My family, friends also lost a lot of money. So when I got in contact with Bell Forex community, I said I will personally go and learn the trade, learn how to trade myself. And I should be honest to say that the community has very good teachers, people who have guided us through. Right now, I can personally trade without fear, because in fact I started trading personally without passing through third parties. And now I can realize what danger it is for people to go and be trading with platforms which they don't even know anything about. Secondly, you see.
However, it's been noted that youths of these days are becoming very creative, and we can only wish them luck.
That's it for the first part of this newscast. Up next, Talking Point. Good evening once again. You're welcome to Talking Points. Today we're having as guest Dr. Emma M. Osong. She is an American of Anglophone Cameroon origin, one of America's notable advocates and leading voices striving for permanent peace based in the two English-speaking regions. She is also an author, educator, that's a professor at the Catholic University in America. She's as well a speaker and peace advocate, notwithstanding a permanent geodetic aerospace engineer and founder of Women for Permanent Peace and Justice. You're welcome, Doctor. We certainly will be striving to connect with our guest, Dr. Emma M. Osong, who is founder of Women for Permanent Peace and Justice, an organization grouping women who are striving to advocate for peace in troubled localities. This point in time in the two English-speaking regions of the country.
You, Babylon.
We will, of course, be getting our talk. Good evening once again, Dr. Emma.
Thank you, Mr. Aze. I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me again on your program. And good evening to your guests and to my brothers and sisters out there. Thank you.
Okay, we should focus first of all concerning the armed conflict in the two English-speaking regions of the country that continues to record series of atrocities, abuses and killings. After the killing of the physics teacher in Kumba, the killing of the Nigerian woman, of course, that was residing here in Douala. She was on her way to Nigeria. She was killed in Kumba. In the context of the armed conflict. Several other deaths, this time around, that's of Jibril Dubila Ngoran at below Fonta Street neighborhoods, that's in the Bamenda Ture subdivision. I believe it should be coming as a shocking wave to WPPJ.
Mr. Aze, it's beyond shocking. I think we are outraged. Yet again, we are bearing a son. There are children somewhere coming home without a dad, without an uncle. There is a mother somewhere who will soon bury another son. So this is again calls for an outrage on any woman out there and any person, not only of Southern Cameroon extraction, but throughout the construct called Cameroon, that we need to collectively be outraged. There are several questions Babila raised here. Why would an innocent civilian be executed by ostensibly a professional military? Someone known in the area, someone going about his business, and by the way, no riots were registered in that area. So how is it that we have an execution in broad daylight? Is this yet another guilty by being, quote, a male and an amber in the Southern Cameroon? So these are some of the questions, Mr. Aze. And while we are on the subject, it is not an abuse, as you pointed out at the top of your show. It is a moral outrage. Number one, the area is militarized. Our civilian communities are militarized. Our airports are now military bases. The justice system is militarized and weaponized. And by the way, our audience need to understand unequivocally that Cameroon lacks the legal framework to prosecute atrocity crimes as the execution of Mr. Jibril going about its business. Cameroon only recognizes atrocity and torture in its legal system. And that is why Women for Permanent Peace and all the mothers who are again going to dig a grave and put a child in must not look at this as an abuse, but atrocity crime and crimes against humanity. And this calls for all those, and I use some harsh words here, our brothers and sisters who are so-called elites. I call them apologists for Biya or Biya apologists, to recognize that the military, professional military, has not issued a statement, not on the execution of Mr. Jibril Dubaye, not on the execution the last time of women and children, during which the Prime Minister, Tion Gute, was out on his peace tour. On this execution, where does that leave us, Mr. Aze? That we are dealing with a country that is not open, it's closed to everything and attached to fixed solution, the solution that it can indeed win a military war against a people with legitimate concerns. Let me stop here by saying this is not new. We have seen young girls, juveniles in Kumba, principally Miriam Echi and Sandra Ashu, one of them at least a minor, remanded in the first instance court in Kumba to adult systems, penal systems, without the benefits of legal guardian, legal counsel, and even if they do, children are supposed to be protected. These are minors, ostensibly, reported to be raped or defiled by other male, and the males, without any presumption of innocence, by the simple fact they are male, are amber, and therefore subject to execution. What country are we living in?
So the magistrates of the Kumba Court of First Instance says these two minors, they committed an offense by not reporting. They have an idea of those who killed the 7 children at the Mother Francisca International Academy, but they failed to report to the competent authorities the reason why they have to face the law. And the same government authorities have been saying our laws are very effective, despite the fact that Cameroonians say we have good laws, but we do not enforce them. Is it not, are these children not supposed to be facing trial?
Only in a banana republic do you find a child under 18 with an adult male, and you do not consider that defilement of a child, and therefore that child is to be protected in the first instance. Secondly, in a situation of war, as our cities, towns, and hamlets are militarized, those children under international convention must be protected. Cameroon is signatory to several conventions and has not lived up to any one of them. These girls are minor, they are our children, and every mother should not lay quiet in their beds, calling for these children, first, not to be in an adult penal system. Number 2, where victims, first and foremost, of defilement, i.e. raped, and therefore must be produced and protected. Secondly, Mr. Aze, the victims in this context, the young man killed was again executed on the presumption that, quote, they are amber, and that the gun was recovered. I ask you, Mr. Aze, has the people in the construct called Cameroon seen the forensic evidence that marries the gun recovered after executing a male amber in the company of a minor to the bullets recovered from the victims of Mother Francisca gruesome massacre, who were, by the way, refused to be given to the families? Has there been any forensic marrying of evidence collected in a subsequent, quote, case of accessory after the fact, we haven't seen that. All we know is that if you are male, you are subject to execution on the pretext of being amber under any condition that they deem necessary. And on top of that, plant evidence to make the case in the public eye that of, quote, terrorists. We must decry this as our collective consciences and humanity is at risk. We must call this a desperate attempt by the regime to conceal the real perpetrator of the gruesome murder of February 14th in Garbo, as we know, and in October 24th at Mother Francisca International Academy. There has been to date no witness produced, Mr. Aze, that can say these young men found with minors are the same one who perpetrated this crime. And oh, by the way, let's just be clear, in our moral outrage, which is definitely, clearly one we need to continue to project. A gruesome crime is committed. The perpetrator stroll down the street from the scene of the murder down to Kusala and take refuge in the bedrooms of minor as if nothing happened. This is all attempts to conceal and to label any male a victim, and for the regime in Yaoundé, Mr. Aze, to deny presenting itself in good faith under the Swiss process for a mediated solution to this 5-year-long crisis. It is clear that the regime in Yaoundé, through its, as I call, apologists for the BR regime, are willing to use all and every means within their power of state power to deny our people a sense of true peace and justice. That is why we are not only abused through the killing, as you mentioned in your report earlier, it is an outrage and a complete assault on our collective humanity that no mother, no father, no child should have to bury a loved one. We need to call for a demilitarization of our cities, our towns, and our hamlets. We need to call for the end and for the government of President Biya to ascend to the UN call for a ceasefire as a first point of departure, so that real peace, the peace that Mr. John Gute says he wants, which, by the way, I don't believe he truly does, because he would tell his government to sit down with the armed groups under the Swiss-led process and dialogue so we can achieve real solutions. Right now, we are working towards the peace of the graveyard, and every mother out there should deny that kind of peace.
Okay, Dr. Emma, you mentioned of demilitarization of civilian localities, but the government says the military, they are there to protect lives and properties. Why should these localities be demilitarized? Don't you think it would be endangering lives of civilians if they go back to their barracks? We know very well that there are many persons out there in so many groups who move around with guns terrorizing the population. Don't you think that would be a potential threat to lives of the civilians in the two English-speaking regions?
Mr. Azel, let's be clear about something. If there are no thugs in your neighborhood, most people have no need for 10-foot high fences. If you do not have defilement of your property, stealing, you'll have no need for security systems. The very fact of a militarized southern Cameroon is itself a provocation. The fact that your mother, the fact that Mr. Jibril is killed, what does that do to the young people in that area? We saw that yesterday. The rising up of youth to say enough is enough. The military is creating the problem, promoting the existence of a situation where it is peace at the barrel of the gun, acquiescence, or patronage. True peace suggests
against one party. You are forgetting to mention also those who have picked up arms against the states. Are they not causing atrocities as well? Are they not killing?
Violence on both sides, be it Bias Bill, trained by the Israeli and funded by the United States, all the armed groups, however they get their arms. We must totally stand against atrocity crimes, no matter who perpetrates it. But Mr. Azeh, you must recall that it is the government, through the territorial minister, who called for militias to be formed. And what did we have after that call? The Garbo massacre. The state party has the moral grounds and is bound by international conventions to do the right thing by its population. He who wears the crown bears the greater responsibility here. Children would never, ever have picked up arms to fight. They picked up peace plans. Here we are in a full-scale war. It is to ascend to a ceasefire, demilitarize the area, so the tempers are cool, and we submit the parties who are now the belligerents to dialogue and address the root causes. There will be no peace if there is continuous aggression or even perception of aggression. The killings of yesterday does nothing to further the cause of Mr. Dion Gute with his peace plan. It simply says we are being exterminated. And I use that word without doing so lightly. The Shea and Sika families do not exist in Garbo, but it was through the army and the militia seeking out who they call a terrorist that we ended up with this very unfortunate situation that has only caused an escalation. Yesterday's rally by the masses may very well be the tipping point. But what does a professional army does? It shoots an innocent civilian and never issues a statement. There's always cover-up.
If there's time for that, they are taking the time, of course, to come up with a clear statement regarding some of the atrocities they are labeling on the military, the professional military, so speak. But now, before we go out, let's talk about the cessation of fire, as demanded by the United Nations. According to you, a founder of Women for Permanent Peace and Justice, who should cease fire today?
Both sides. Some of the armed groups have ascended to Antonio Guterres' global call for a ceasefire. The government has yet to ascend to that global call, even in the midst of fighting pandemic. And let's not go there because we will divert and talk about COVID gate. We at the level of what I call frontline victims, those at home who may not be able to advocate for themselves, and those of us away who have the ability to advocate, must call the government under President Biya's command that they are parties to, they are part of the United Nations system. Why are they not ascending to the global call for ceasefire? Why has La République refused to submit itself to the internationally backed peace process under Switzerland, Geneva? Mr. Azeh, you would find out on social media today's articles from a journal called Le Temps Afrique, I guess it's Africa Times, essentially saying that the peace process is dead or non-existent. But let's take very quickly why that's the case. Mr. Dion Gute is clearly the obstructionist here, refusing to participate in the process. Meanwhile, as we know, some of them want rather to use the intelligence sources to go into individual negotiations with individuals on the other side. That does not make for a peace process. The international community, yes, is frustrated as are the armed groups that I understand are under a coalition called the Amazonia Coalition Team, willing to speak with Yaoundé. But that frustration is clearly justified because, again, unwilling to cease hostilities, believing that there is a possible solution that is military, continues to give a sense that there is no reason to talk to these armed groups. Our children have taken up arms. The question is why? I think at this juncture, 5 years in, we know why. The problem is now to ask who has the greatest incentive not to cease fire? Who has the greatest incentive not to engage in an internationally backed peace process, but rather creating and fomenting the maximum division that says there is some other coalition that we can support. If you believe in that coming out of Yaoundé and not the Swiss process, you're simply saying that the grievances, the justified grievances of the people of Southern Cameroon is just but a minority issue in the larger problem facing this construct called Cameroon, be it from Boko Haram to the east, to the south, to the northwest, and to the Nozo. As long as you do that, you're not going to be addressing the root causes. So I think if there is anything we all can collectively agree on, is that the BR regime clearly is closed to the possibility that it cannot continue to militarize our zone and get a victory outright from the people who clearly are embattled and now executed just for being male. That is, it defies imagination. One time, you understand.
Thank you so much, Dr. Emma. Thank you so very much. Just to understand your take, the government of Cameroon should demilitarize the civilian localities and also to call for absolute cessation of fire in the two English-speaking regions and dialogue with those who have picked up arms. Thank you once again, Dr. Emma M. Wosong. I recall that you are an American of Anglophone Cameroon origin, and you are equally founder of Women for Permanent Peace and Justice, a group of women waging for peace, that is notably in the two English-speaking regions of the country. Thanks so much. And that's it for this edition of the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Equinoxe Television. Thanks so much for watching. Do have a splendid evening. Join us tomorrow, another day, God willing.